Hello and Shabbat Shalom to you. Hope the Friday's good. Heading into what's going to be hopefully a wonderful Shabbat, a relaxing Shabbat, a meaningful Shabbat, a rejuvenating Shabbat as we enter the Torah portion this week of Mishpatim. Mishpatim here in the book of Exodus, and it is a good one. It is a tangible one. It is one that we can really deeply engage with and interpret and play with. And also, by the way, is the building block, if you will, of so much more Jewish text to come, so much more discussion that will happen eventually in the Mishnah and the Talmud, and then in practicality in terms of how we function in Jewish society, all stemming from this week's Torah portion. There are so many mitzvot in here, actually. So there are 53 mitzvot in this week's Torah portion. 53 of them. It's really, there are 23 positive ones, and so there are 32 negative ones. I mean, the not negative is like, oh, this is terrible, but like the thou shalt and the thou shalt not. So, and here's the very first interesting piece is that in terms of, so a mishpatim means sort of laws, and the difference in these kind of laws is there are two kinds of laws in Judaism. One is called a mishpat, and one is called a chuk. And the chuk is a law that's from God. It's sort of like the because I said so. Sort of like from a parental figure might say to us, and sometimes we can have a dialogue and we'll make a decision, and sometimes a parental figure might just say, "Oh, because I said so." So a chok is because I said so, but the mishpat is the more flexible and more bendable and discussable laws. In fact, so the Torah portion is called Mishpatim. In fact, Beit Mishpat in Hebrew means a courthouse. So, which is a place where, by the way, one can interpret laws. Laws sit there, right? But we can interpret them. And so the Torah portion is just full of these types of rules that we get to bend and maneuver and discuss. And so several of them include agricultural things. Several of them include how we celebrate our festivals. Several of them include some particulars about what will eventually be worship and prayer. And then there is probably the most intriguing one for us is the mention of not mixing milk and meat. And so how that transpires as to not mixing milk and meat, how do you do that? What do you mean by mixing milk and meat? What's identified as meat? How much space might there be between our milk and meat? And so if we know any of those components, that's where this Torah portion comes from. And by the way, all we get is that line, like, don't mix the milk and the meat, essentially. Doesn't go on into explaining. It really just says, don't bathe the calf in its mother's milk. And then the expanse is very large about what that means. So all that stems from this particular Torah portion. There's also very interesting conversations about loans and damages and what happens if we damage property. And so it's a very, like I mentioned, discussable Torah portion. So that means we can't wait to discuss it with you. Services are not that far away. They are at 6:30 tonight. And then tomorrow morning at 8:30 is our service and our Torah study to discuss this very cool, intricate, law-connected Torah portion of Mishpatim. Shabbat Shalom.